Right, doing a breakdown of the summative track, kind of where I'm at. I must say, got a little bit in flow state when making it, so I've kind of not documented as much of what I've been doing as I would like, but hopefully I can get into depth about it in the breakdown here. I'll start with a little playthrough first, I think, and then I'll talk about what's happening.
You know he is for real. Who do you think of when you're lonely? Who do you think of, girl, when you're lonely? Lonely. lonely.
Right, so yeah, that's the track. Have had some feedback from listening in the class. I'm gonna be honest, I don't know if this is a weird thing, but I've tried taking into consideration what some people have said, about adding some more melodic stuff and making that bass horn a little bit grittier. And I don't know if I agree. I think obviously feedback's good, but I guess sometimes like I want it to sound this way, so I've done it this way. I don't know if that's right, but anyway, that's for like another vlog. So basically, it all started from these. Let's play that twice. So like I said in one of my vlogs, I was just playing away on the keys. And then just really liked something I'd done. So I rolled that back, so there's this little option up here. You can dump score log from the selected pattern, and you can actually even go up to 30 minutes, which is pretty insane. So yeah, I just done that. Got this piano. Oh, actually, do you know what? If I turn off the effects and play it again. All I've got on there is just a little bit of saturation. Literally just the bass plug-in as it is. Just dropped on FabFilter. Just cutting out the low frequencies and just a little boost. I think at some point when I was mixing down, I just felt like it needed that little bit extra. Oh, ignore me. I'm literally clicked on the wrong thing. I was saying that, so I thought that was a bit weird. Okay, so still an M saturator. Again, just as is. And then I've got a compressor, which is, if I turn these on, there's a C. A little bit of reduction. Threshold, -18. 2 to 1. No attack, full release, a little bit of makeup gain. Really doesn't do much. I kind of did that just to clean up some of the peaks of the sound. And then from that, basically from that, I started making different layers to go with it. So there's this thing here. This is Orb Synth. If I find this, oh, actually, I'll just quickly. So the keys are played soft piano from Labs. Nothing's really changed in here, but yeah. So this was just a preset from Orb Synth. It's got a little bit of delay, and I literally just took the bass notes of the chords and just used them to go with the keys. So if I solo them, and then so when they're together, right as well, whereas I really wanted the keys to be the main part of the track. Like that's what the whole thing was made around. So I kept them very central. I want them to just be everything made around that. So I had that little synth pluck delay thing just a little bit to the right, just so just gives it that extra space. And then I went on to just trying to make some drums basically. So I started off with this break. Really like the percussion that was in there. Just felt like it was something that was going to work really well. I really like a lot of high end in my drum, so I pulled out this other break and just laid it with it. Got them in two separate channels here. All I'm doing is just rolling off the low end. This is the one with the percussion, so I just gave that a little boost just to bring out that bongo-y, snare-y thing, ghost hits. Take out the low end and then just keep all the tops, and then pretty much the same from the other one, but just slightly taken out a little bit there. Just I felt like it was a little bit harsh on the high end, and again rolling off the low end. So yeah, if I turn that's in without the plugin, without the EQ in. And then I added in a kick drum. This is after rolling off the top end, and that by itself. Nothing special, to be honest. Not a really nice kick drum. It's literally just from a pack. I don't know, I quite like that at the top for some reason. So I think it just worked well with how the snare sounded in the drum breaks. So yeah, so then obviously with drum and bass you need to have a lot, like the kick and snare need to be powering through the mix. So I wouldn't really recommend using a drum break like by itself. Always layer stuff so you can have a little bit more control over what's happening with the snare and the kick, or you can slice out like I have done later on. I've wanted to change up the percussion a little bit, so I've just, if you can see here, I've muted the percussion-y break and I've just taken the snares out and just using them separately. But for this initial part I just figured let's just change up the snare, so this is with the snare as well. And the snare sounds like this by itself. Pretty bog standard drum and bass kind of distorted rim shot, noisy rim shot. Yeah. So with the kick and snares, not a great deal of processing. Let's delete that, it's not being used. Not a great deal of processing on them. I just tend to make sure my kick's in mono. I've got this little part here, that's the stereo separation knob. Just make sure my kick's in mono. In fact, I've not even EQ'd it whatsoever. A lot more of my EQing I would do on my big drum bus. So what I tend to do with this is, so like as you can see here, I've got like a kick 1, kick 2. At this moment I'm using one kick, I'm using one snare, because obviously I've got the break layers over the top as well. So I'll have these two go into their own buses, into the kick snare bus, where I normally do a lot of the processing there, because again, other projects there'll be different layers and stuff. But the good benefit of that is you can then keep the sidechain for just the kick and snare. You don't need to you won't be like sidechaining your whole drum bus or anything like that. You can keep that nice and separate. But a little feature I love in FL is there's a plugin called Fruity Peak Controller. This bad boy right here, I love it. So you can see every time that kick hits, you can turn the volume up, bigger peak. So every time that kick hits, it causes a trigger. So the way I chain everything is I'll have everything. So for example, my drums going all weirdly it goes backwards before it goes forwards. So I've got everything here going to the buses, and then they'll go along to the main kick snare bus, which is where I might use that channel to do some like sidechain compression and stuff. Then that goes to the big drum bus, which is joined then by the I call it a hat bus, but it's just like tops. It's like hats, percussion stuff, cymbals, whatever. Into that a big bus together, and then there's some parallel processing. So there's like a parallel reverb channel, reverb send, and then a distortion, which distortion and the over compressed bus parallel processing channel aren't being used in this project, but they're there in my template, just in case. Yeah, so then that's all going to this bus, getting the reverb, and then going into the big main drum bus, where, as you can see here, there's a lot of processing on there. But because I do that, and then for example I've got my synths and stuff, they'll then go to big bus here. For example, basses, I actually separate them, so the bus will, the sound comes to this first channel here, which hasn't got any output other than going to a high and low. So that's not going to the master, that's just going to a high channel and a low channel, where I have just using EQs to separate. So on the low, so like they've gone over there. So on the high channel, on the low channel, I just cut off and let's keep them separate. And then they'll go to a high and a low channel, whereas these ones will then go through all the low frequency sounds, go through the kick sidechain, and all the higher frequency sounds go through the snare sidechain. Basically, sub bass and low end of the basses go into the kick sidechain, and then everything else runs through the snare sidechain. And then that Fruity Peak controller that we spoke about here, this is then used to control the faders on this. So if you watch, you can see the faders go up and down. So they're actually dipping the volume in and out every time the kick and snare hits, no matter what's playing. As long as it's routed through that, that's what happens basically. And then like with this, you have a lot of control, so you can control decay. So you get the idea. I can have that nice and tight, so it's just like the transients of the kick, transients of the snare, punching through the sound. Yeah, so that's kind of why I have that set up like that. That's side chaining. But yeah, I'll get back to the drums. And then, so very common in drum and bass, something I do a lot in all my tracks is just to have a nice little ghost snare. So what I'll usually do is I'll get the snare sound that I've previously used, make this one a unique version of it, route it into another channel that's basically a lot lower volume. Whereas I won't route that to the normal snare bus, because I don't really want the ghost snare to be triggering the sidechain. So that will then route, as you can see at the bottom here, that will route all the way to the big drum bus, and then yeah, so you can see the names a bit better. and that's in the big drum bus. So yeah, it sounds how it sounds with that together. To be fair, I can actually barely hear it. Let's turn it up. There you go. Yeah. So yeah, that's a ghost snare, and then from there I started adding some other layers, because obviously the breaks and stuff sound great, but it's all about the layers with making this kind of music, to get everything sounding large and thick and wide. So then I added in this kind of hat sound. If you see, this is on hat 1 here. Got that panned 73% to the left, just to give it some more space, whereas the breaks are it's very central. That shaker from the drum breaks very central. So just kind of, this will follow a similar pattern. This kind of hi-hat is going to be in those breaks as well, but then you're just hearing a bit on the left, so it's just giving it that. I like the drums. The drums need to kind of like start off thin and just get nice and big at the top. The way I like doing it, anyway. So this is here. This is the sound of it with the hat in as well. And then from then I just carried on adding more and more like hi-hat parts. So there's this one as well. Again, all the way pan to the left, and then a little bit less on the left. I wanted it to sound like it was like kind of moving over. So now let's hear them together. Very, very slight. Yeah. And then next, added in this kind of I think it's just a cymbal, but it's been made in a synth. And then that just comes in through 4 bars. Again, fully panned to the left. I feel like I tend to do a lot of my hats and stuff to the left, so I'll give a little bit of space, because you'll see in a minute the next hat layer. I like to come in right on the right hand side and just like hitting you over there. I think it sounds really cool. To be fair, actually, should we turn off some of this processing? See, it just sounds mad different. And then if I move this along, this is for the little switch up. This is just a loop I made in another project. I just extracted it from there, took it out, just because I really liked it. Spent a bit of time on it, so yeah, basically it. So, and then that just comes in onto the right hand side. Yeah, so that's the drums. You can see they're sounding pretty weak right now, so what I always do is I have a nice reverb send. So I've got this I use convolution reverb on a send here. To be fair, I thought I'd change this, but it's on gated drum room, 100% wet, cutting out the low frequencies, and then feeding that back into the big drum bus. And then in the big drum bus is where all the magic happens. So if I turn these back on, so just to saturate it to begin with, just brings it out a little bit more. This boost, I'm actually the license. I've had issues with the license, so it's not actually doing anything at the moment. But that was really making the sound better. It's a really fun limiter. That kind of just shreds the sound, just brings everything out. It's really nice. And then just a compressor, just a little bit of reduction there, just kind of leveling out the sound a little bit from those peaks of the snare. And then a limiter. Just bringing it out a little bit more. Transient shaper then. You can really hear that snare starts punching through a lot more. And then just some weird EQing. A little bit more beef on the bass, on the sub of the on the low end of the kick, and then just boosting that main frequency of the snare. Just sounded right at the time. This charm reverb is actually this effect here, something that's been inspired from Need for Mirrors, artist I listen to a lot. Something he does quite commonly in his tracks for transitions is just having a reverb just come in and just take over before dropping back. So I'll play with that. I think it's really effective. I don't know, a lot of people would use a riser there or something like that, some effect, some FX. But I just think to the whole vibe of keeping this simple, I just think that works perfectly, and I was just really enjoyed it. These last few plugins are more just control and automation, more than anything, and then I'm actually that was from sidechain. I was actually sidechaining a vocal I was using to try and bring that through past the drums, but didn't end up keeping that in the end. But yes, it's just some of the automation from the beginning of the track. You can see it, you can hear it. Oh. You've got some volume automation bringing it in, and then there's frequencies. That's basically all these plugins at the beginning here are doing, pretty much. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, not very much processing on the kick, and then just a little bit of saturation and transient shaping on the snare on its own. So not very much going on at all. On the hats and stuff, all there is basically nothing. Literally nothing. A little compressor on. And then EQ there, not doing anything. Surprise, surprise. Which actually, while I'm here, I'm actually gonna roll that off. Get some more headroom. And then so that's the drums. Here, just filtering in the peak control. So basically, if you've got the kick and snare in the intro that are quiet, so where I obviously had the automation, the volume automation, so there was no sound, the signal was still there. So the signal is still causing the automation to trigger the sidechain. So in the intro, it was like pumping the keys and stuff, which I obviously don't want. So this is just a automation clip, just controlling the peak controller to turn on as it gets to the drop, basically. That's all that is. And then, so yeah, so that's kind of, I started off then with the keys and this orb, this synth, kind of so yeah, then from there I kind of work in, so I'll get like a 16 bar loop. So I would have started with this, and I was just listening to this a lot over and over. So I figured, right, I think the easiest option would be to just use the bass notes from the keys, and similar to what I've done with the orb, and just add a sub bass. This is what the sub bass sounds by itself. Which is made using Serum. Literally, it's just using the sub generator. I did have noise. I don't know why I can't. Oh, yeah, I know why I can't hear that. If I bring up this, so yeah, and then now play it. Kind of did start with the noise layer like that. I don't know, just a little bit too grimy for this kind of track, so just kept it with the sub bass. Very simple, just a little bit of distortion. It's just a sine wave sub, a little bit of an attack, bit of release, simple as that. Yeah, that's what it sounds. And then, so like I said before, so this is then sending to like the bass channel, then it's being separated into high and low frequencies, and then they're being sent to the high and low frequency channels. Obviously the high is muted because I just didn't feel like it needed it, and I'm just again here making sure everything's in mono. So I've got this selected here on the mono side, and literally a bit of saturation just to bring it out a little more, and then just a little bit more distortion. Where is this plugin? There it is. Literally just a blank Camel Crusher patch with distortion on tube. That's literally it, and that's just pushing that, getting that nice sound. So very simple. I feel like you should keep your subs very, very clean, as clean as possible. Don't want to like any wide frequencies in the low end. Like everything should be mono, no reverb or anything like that. I've seen a few people that I know making tracks that don't really like. I feel like that's a rule that isn't made to be broken, whereas I'm a firm believer in rules are made to be broken. But yeah, that one definitely not. if you want your mix down sounding clean anyway. So yeah, so what I tend to do, my workflow is I'll get something like this done, and then I'll just keep going around in that 16 bar loop, and I'll find different layers to add. But again, this one where oh, actually that doesn't matter anymore because it's turned off. See, there was a tremolo and a saturator, if you can see this, but it doesn't matter anymore because obviously the that high frequency channel is turned off. I thought I forgot to talk about that, but that doesn't matter. And then yeah, I'll just add layers. Sorry. But with this one, I don't know, just how this was sounding like this. It just was exactly the vibe I wanted it to be. Just simple, just chilled vibe. Nice. So, but yeah, of course, wanted to have a switch up. So, I just playing around with Serum again. Made this thing. Let's tremolo for this, turn it off. Wrong one. Why is that? Turn it off for a minute. So yeah, so very simple again. This one literally is just, it's just a it started off as a sawtooth. Sawtooth, I've actually done some used the bend tool in here just to be fair, doesn't really do a great deal. Some hyper and some dimension, chorus, delay, with the left going quicker than the right. I feel like it adds that nice, it like moves over from one side to the other, where you reverb, and then just EQ cutting out that low frequency as this wasn't being used as a sub or anything like that. And then that nice, it's just really big horn kind of sound. Yeah, I think it's really cool. Just something as simple as two sawtooth with some reverb and chorus. Just, I think it's perfect. Yeah, so then this again, this gets sent to like a different bass channel and then run through into the bass high. And we'll get to points where it's being used. So yeah, let's turn everything off here. Just quieting down, a bit of saturation. Same again, M saturator, just how it is. Patcher. Haven't shown this plugin yet on here. It's basically a native FL one, really nice. You can it's just like a signal chain. So I've got like the main signal running straight through to FL. So I like to always keep some instance of the sound like as clean and raw as possible. I think it helps with the phasing and stuff like that. Well, not just phasing, sorry, when you're like summing to mono, because obviously a lot of music that's played in clubs, the speakers are actually mono, so you kind of like think ahead of things being subbed to mono. So I've always got one raw signal going through the middle, and then I'll have like this Camel Crusher running parallel with a lot of distortion. I've got a phaser on there as well. Yeah, running parallel basically. And then that patch is not being used at the moment. And then just a Fruity Balance just for some volume automation, which isn't actually being used. I had a little bit of a creative thing where I'll show you, I was trying to beef it up a little bit, and I just wasn't liking it. It's just too much. I really like how nice and just like it fits in the mix, just like normal. So much better, so much nicer. And then yeah, so I started then working out, getting a kind of arrangement down. I like this whole part where it switches up, so I'd stuck with that. Started trying to work on an intro, which to be honest I think probably needs a little bit more work as well, but I felt like it was just missing a little something, so I tried to get some cellos involved to try and go with the theme of like with the piano. Just some, I don't even know, windy, kind of mysterious cellos. We got a saturation again, EQ just, it's over there. EQ just taking out loads of frequencies. See how that sounds without that. Yeah, I just wanted to like bring it down in the mix a lot more, so I chose to do that, and then a flanger on there. And then yeah, so that just kind of, when that comes in the intro, just adds some more dynamic to the sound. Just don't know, it's very there, just behind. It just adds to kind of like the mysticalness to the beginning. And then yeah, so at this point I showed it to the class, and then they were suggesting me to do some stuff, try to add some more melodic kind of sounds, and I don't know, I just was just loving how I just love how simple it is. I don't know why, I feel like that's exactly how I want it to be, so I'm not changing that. But I did start playing with some ARPs. I always love an ARP. So this is what I started using. I used the same chords from the initial chords and made an ARP from them. And that is just a Serum preset patch called Crushed Pluck. And then if I just hit the switch up here, you have all like the features that I built into FL. So I've just run it through the random mode in Arpeggiator. range up to 3, arpeggio time onto 2, gate 65%, and that's basically what came of that. But I kind of wasn't liking it. I sort of played this part with it here. I think that works nicely there with the bass, but having it at the same time, the chords and stuff at the beginning just didn't sound right. So I figured just have little teasers of it. I just think that worked quite nicely, having a little tease ready for it to come in, and then it's a little bit more in the forefront for the second drop. And that, not much processing there. Again, saturator, and then EQ just taking out the low frequencies basically. And then yeah, like on my main buses, isn't really much. There's just some limiters doing side chaining, an EQ. Wait, why are they around that way? That should be that way around. Just again doing the cuts that I'd have on my basses before, all running into a pre-master where I have a fab filter, which is just boosting some frequencies and using the mid-side section to cut. Wait, is that? No, that is on both. To cut out any stereo image on the low end, anything below. What's it? 182, but it was like a bit of a roll off there. And then an EQ here. This is just cutting off. Oh, what have I done? This is just cutting off below 20 hertz and above 20k hertz, basically. And then all of that. So if I then run into the master, well, this is what it sounds like without the processing on there. Sounds nice still, just missing a little bit. And then all that's sort of going on here is just again another M saturator. As you can tell, I really like that plugin. I use it a lot, just to bring out the sounds more. I think it already sounds way better even with that. And then cutting more because I felt I think so. Then after saturating it on the master, it was adding some frequencies that were like below some stereo frequencies that were below where I was cutting before. So I've done an even bigger cut here, and then a little boost because, to be fair, that I was kind of mixing with my eyes, so I used span, and I was noticing there was some like a little bit of a dip up here, so I just boosted that with the fab filter, and then I'm running it into this Maximus, which I'm just still getting my head around a little bit. It's multi-band compressor, got the different bands, all being controlled here as well. It's got limiter and everything. It's literally just a mastering preset at the moment. Like I said, I'm still getting my head around this kind of stuff, but I just felt like it made it sound nice, so then I feel like I might need to have a little bit of a boost there. But yeah, so yeah, that's the that's the track basically. I don't think I need to talk about anything else, but I'm kind of at a mixing stage now. I've just been trying to get everything sounding all crisp and nice, and yeah, I think in a composition kind of sense and the arrangement, I think it's going to be left as it is. I'm really happy with it. Like I said, I did get some feedback and I've taken that on board, but I just feel like, I don't know, I don't actually agree. I don't know if that's a bad thing or not, but yeah, basically. But that's it. Thank you for listening and watching.